The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
This week, we will begin the very critical process of hearing from constitutional experts to really lay out the ground for impeachment of the president. So as we, from the intelligence community, turned over that report to judiciary, we still have a lot of work to do.
And we know the witnesses for Wednesday's hearing will be legal experts on impeachment. Any sense of how many future hearings your committee will hold? And do you expect any fact witnesses to be called or recalled from the Intelligence Committee's proceedings?
Well, we have not really made the decision on future hearings or future witnesses yet. I think our main focus right now is to have the president and his counsel, who you know are given the same privileges as President Nixon and President Clinton had, to participate and engage in this impeachment process, even to the point of if we have any executive sessions on the Judiciary Committee, they're invited to participate. So we are certainly hoping that the president, his counsel, will take advantage of that opportunity. If he has not done anything wrong, we're certainly anxious to hear his explanation of that.
Have you gotten any indication the White House will be involved or the counsel?
We have not. As you may know, Chairman Nadler sent a letter. I know they've been in conversations with the White House and counsel, but they sent a letter just again inviting the president, making sure that he and his counsel are aware of the opportunities to fully engage and participate in this process. We are certainly hoping that he will, as I said.
This is amazing. I'm still full. I'm not agile yet. I'm still full. I'm still eating. And it's December. Everybody, stop eating. Stop it now. Because here come the diet commercials, right? Because of what we just did. Well, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope you fought about normal things. I hope you fought about your the money. I hope you fought about football. I hope you fought about fantasy football. I hope you fought about whether or not red zone is for people with ADD. I mean, I hope you had normal fights, because this country is so split down the butt crack that 53% of Republicans believe that Donald Trump is a better president than Abraham Lincoln. Honest Abe. Honest Abe, they believe Abraham Lincoln, 53% of Republicans, is a better president than Honest Abe. They also believe that that Trump is a better president than Dwight Eisenhower. 65% say Trump is a better president than Dwight Eisenhower. Do you really want to be fighting with those people with knives on the table? I say no. I say no, especially if you saw my table, there was wine on it. Not that I imbibed. I did not imbibe because I was the designated driver for Loretta. Yeah. But, I mean, you don't want to have knives on the table. You don't want to have alcohol on the table when this is the situation. How are you going to argue with somebody who thinks that 71% of America thinks that Donald Trump is a better president than Dwight Eisenhower, or 65% think he's better than Eisenhower, 53% think he's better than freaking Lincoln? I mean, this is crazy. You know, here's what this survey said. 71% claimed Trump was a better president than H.W. Bush and George W. Bush. All right, I'm part of that. Not really. I mean, I just think they all sucked. I mean, where was the option to check off they all sucked? Where was the option to check off why did they go into Iraq in the first place? And what is Trump doing guarding oil in Syria? Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, 8 in 10 Republicans, 80%, think Trump was a better president than Gerald Ford, who was president for like 5 seconds and pardoned Richard Nixon. 86% say he's better than Richard Nixon. The only exception with Republicans, Ronald Reagan. He's their, he's the Jesus. Donald Trump is the prodigal son. No, the prodigal son is Jesus. I'm a Jew. Leave me out of that. Moses? I don't know. But 6 in 10, 60% say Reagan was better than Donald Trump. I mean, you cannot argue with people like this. You just can't. And they are unified in their stubbornness. And I'm not just talking about the people on the ground. I'm talking about the people who should know better. This is a sick propaganda situation. America has never seen this before in my lifetime, okay? And it's not a short lifetime, so that's saying a lot, right? But tonight at 6 o'clock, here's what's going to happen. Tonight at 6 o'clock, it's Monday, everybody. It's the Monday after the gorge. It's the Monday after the feast. It's the Monday after you stuffed yourself silly, laid on a couch, fell asleep with Red Zone on, and your relatives just said, I'm out, right? And just somehow moseyed on off. It was very peaceful at my house, I must say. But tonight at 6 o'clock, the Intelligence Committee is going to release the Ukraine report. They're going to release their findings after they had spoken to 17 witnesses. Now, they called a whole bunch, we saw a whole bunch, but they spoke to 17 witnesses. So tomorrow, I believe there will be a vote on whether or not to endorse Adam Schiff's Intelligence Committee's findings on the Ukraine probe, findings on bribery, findings. These are not the articles of impeachment. This is just to accept the report, to say that the report is something that the House accepts as being true. Now, that's going to be a party line vote because, like I said, half of this government, the people who know better, are so stubborn because they understand two things. One, some of them are implicated, like Devin Nunes. Some of them have very dirty hands, like Jim Jordan, who, if you wanted to, I don't know, be a wrestling doctor and abuse 215 and 14-year-old boys by drugging them and raping them, or, doing untoward things to yourself in a shower in front of them, and there was a coach that could vouch for it or could deny, then you would want that person to be Jim Jordan. And so you got people that are so completely corrupt and so completely, I don't know. I mean, if we're going to have propaganda, I might as well have compromat too, right? We have members of the House that are so compromised that it's sick. It's sad. So this is probably going to be a party line vote over what we heard under oath by guys like Volker and Sondland and Fiona Hill and what's her name? The one that DOD who said that, Wallace, who said that the DOD certified that Ukraine had met all the benchmarks for anti-corruption efforts. I mean, this is unbelievable. So a party line vote on what the facts actually show. And then that'll be Tuesday, the vote. Then on Wednesday, at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're going to have hearings by constitutional scholars on what constitutes an impeachable offense, okay? What constitutes an impeachable offense. Now, I'm predicting that the articles of impeachment, which have not been drafted yet, which will be drafted in the Judiciary Committee, not the Intelligence Committee, I am predicting that those articles, and there will be more than one according to me, okay, just according to me. So for those of you who keep track of how often I'm right and wrong, this would be a good day to earmark, okay? I'm saying that there will be a bribery, abuse of power article. I'm saying there will be an obstruction article on this Ukraine investigation and an obstruction article with regard to the Mueller report. There may also be, and this is up for grabs, I don't know how deep they want to get, an article about perjury and witness tampering with regard to the written answers in the Mueller report. Because the testimony from Mueller to that same congresswoman who we just played, Val Demings of Florida, was that generally Trump was dishonest in his written answers to Mueller. So I think that there will be multiple articles of impeachment, but I just want you to know that the Intelligence Committee worked all throughout the Thanksgiving holiday to complete this report. So I'll send them my leftovers.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Will Republicans on the committee call for subpoena witnesses to testify? And if so, who are you going to ask to testify?
Oh, of course. We're going to testify. First and foremost, the first person who needs to testify is Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff is the author of this report. Adam Schiff has been the author of many things, a lot of them found to be false over the past couple of years, but he's going to be the author of this report. He's compared himself in the past to a special counsel. This is what he said he was doing. Well, if we go back to Clinton and even back to Nixon, but in Clinton, Ken Starr was the special counsel. He presented a report that we're going to get as judiciary. He actually came and sat and testified under oath and took questions from all sides, including the White House. My first and foremost witness is Adam Schiff.
So you want to bring him in before the committee, not just to present a report, but to take questions from Democrats and to be cross-examined, if you will, by the Republicans?
He needs to be. He's put himself into that position. If he chooses not to, then I really question his veracity and what he's putting in his report. I question his, the motives of why he's doing it. It's easy to hide behind a report. It's easy to hide behind a gavel in intelligence committees, behind closed-door hearings. But it's going to be another thing to actually get up and have to answer questions about what his staff knew, how he knew, what he did about the whistleblower report, his interactions that he's had with the Ukraine, the other things that he's had over time in this process, and also why he has still not released documents to our committee and reports to our committee that we need to actually proceed in our committee of Judiciary Committee, which is the committee of impeachment. I have a question. Why are they hiding this stuff from us? If they think they have such a case, give us all the materials and don't let Jerry Nadler write a crazy letter that says on the 6th, let us know who your witnesses are. We don't even have the information from the Intel Committee yet. This is why this is a problematic exercise and simply a made-for-TV event coming on Wednesday.
Okay, that was Doug Collins, a Republican from Georgia, okay? And he is alleging that Adam Schiff needs to be called as a witness because Ken Starr, the special prosecutor in Clinton, in the matter of the impeachment of Bill Clinton, was called as the only witness, okay? That's because Ken Starr had a secret grand jury proceeding, and he was the only lawyer allowed in the secret grand jury proceedings, right? Ken Starr was alone in a room with no defense attorney, no Clinton attorney, no Clinton witnesses, no exculpatory evidence, nothing. Okay, Ken Starr controlled a secret grand jury proceeding that indicted Bill Clinton. And so at the impeachment of Bill Clinton, the indictment of Bill Clinton, Ken Starr played the prosecutor again. Now, in this particular instance, Adam Schiff had questioning of 17 witnesses in which you were included. And we know that because when we saw the transcripts, there were questions that were asked by Republican members who were included in the questioning of all those 17 witnesses. That's number one. So Adam Schiff did not control anything. Adam Schiff did not do secret, dungeon, basement, backdoor, backroom hearings. You were invited to all of them, where Ken Starr invited no one from the Clinton camp or from the Democrats or any other person at all into the grand jury. So that's just ridiculous. Now, as for, the deadline to announce witnesses, their deadline to announce witnesses is December 6th. After the release of the report tomorrow. So now, if he's lost as to which witnesses he should be calling because he doesn't know what's in the report, he will know tonight at 6 o'clock. That's number one. Number two, then he was sleeping through those hearings, which you and me were not. Number three, call Mick Mulvaney. Call Mike Pompeo. Call John Bolton. All the people that the president will not let testify. If there's any confusion about which party they belong to, I suggest you Google them. I mean, this is such theater. This is such propaganda. They never attack the facts. They just keep going after Adam Schiff or the whistleblower. The whistleblower has been totally validated by every one of the witnesses who testified because they were either on the phone call or on the ground in Ukraine, meeting with Zelensky or meeting with Yermak, who was the primary contact for Zelensky, and they had firsthand knowledge of what was going on. They had firsthand knowledge of a deal. They had firsthand knowledge of the withholding of aid. So did Ukraine. They had firsthand knowledge of what was being done to Marie Yovanovitch by Rudy Giuliani. They testified that they were directed by Donald Trump to have Rudy Giuliani take the lead in this swampy, disgusting shakedown of Ukraine at a time of war. What is their confusion? Why are they so confused? Maybe the mushrooms that they had were not the same ones we served. This is so bizarre and so disingenuous and such a freaking cover-up of a cover-up of a cover-up. Okay? And you got crazy, crazy Republicans. Steve Bannon was on the TV just, said how happy he is that all the Republicans are completely in, they're in the mud. They're down in the dirt, and they're going to stay there with Trump.
Let's go back to unity and substance. You've got the Republican Party, and I've been one of the rebels in the Republican Party. You've got the Republican Party more united than it's ever been, even in the run-up to the 2016 election. You have them saying this is unacceptable, it's unfair, this man was elected. We're not going to let this, we're not going to let the nullification project on overturning the 2016 election happen. Everybody's pulling together. So you have unity. You look at Hurd, who was probably the outlier on the committee. He's basically said, hey, I am not voting for impeachment. So you have the Republicans totally united. On the Democrat side, you've already had a member of leadership, and you had Van Drew. You've already had 2 vote no, and now you've got the 31. A lot of them saying, hey, I'm neutral right now. So I think you could have a carve-off of up to a half a dozen Democrats that don't vote for this, which then turns it into not just a partisan vote, but a highly partisan vote. And we've never had that on any impeachment, just a highly partisan vote to try to impeach the president. That, to me, kicks off 2020 in a great way for the president.
He's such a sick freak, man. How many shirts do you have to wear? Yeah, I mean, I don't even understand. But this is, now they're saying, oh, it's a partisan vote on the part of the Democrats. First he says the Republicans are unified no matter what law breaking they saw, no matter what they heard, no matter what talking points the Putin wants to spill into the American ecosystem. They will do it. They will say it. They will say Adam Schiff is dirty. They will say whatever they need to say. They will say anything, everything, even though there was testimony by Fiona Hill that this was all Putin's propaganda to frame Ukraine for what they did, right? So then on the back end of saying the Republicans will never react to facts as they find them, the Republicans have already made up their mind as to how they're going to vote, no matter what the facts show, no matter what the timeline, no matter what Zelensky actually said in public today. Yeah, what he said in public today, we're at war, you shouldn't make backroom deals, you shouldn't go behind our back. Why are you withholding aid? That's just, why do you say we're corrupt? That hurts us so bad. But the Republicans don't care. But somehow this is a Democratic plot. Somehow the Democrats who are upholding the law are the problem.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Remember this?
This is a fictional narrative that has been perpetrated and propagated by the Russian security services themselves.
They gave the server to CrowdStrike or whatever it's called, which is a company owned by a very wealthy Ukrainian. And I still want to see that server. You know, the FBI has never gotten that server. That's a big part of this whole thing.
Senator Kennedy, who do you believe was responsible for hacking the DNC and Clinton campaign computers, their emails? Was it Russia or Ukraine?
I don't know.
Oh, my
nor
God.
do you, nor do any of us. Ms. Hill,
well, I mean, let me just interrupt to say the entire intelligence community says it was Russia.
Right, but it could also be Ukraine.
All right, so that was last weekend, right? And then he had to walk it back on. Now, I was showing you that last week, and I said to you, it depends where he's sitting as to where he stands, right? So he was sitting on Fox News Sunday when he said, I don't know, neither do you, confronted with the fact that every intelligence, all 17 intelligence agencies concluded that Russia was so sloppy that they had, Fancy Bear, Cozy Bear, all that, that they had hacked before and they left the same exact codes and it was easily understood who did it. Then he went on CNN. And on CNN, he says he's wrong, right?
Do you really believe that it wasn't Russia?
I did an interview yesterday with Chris Wallace, damn good reporter. I was answering one of his questions, and he interjected a statement and asked me to react to it. What I heard Chris say was he made the statement that only Russia had tried to interfere in the election. And I answered the question. That's not what he said. I went back and looked at the transcript. He said only Russia tried to hack the DNC computer. Now, Chris is right. I was wrong. The only evidence I have, and I think it's overwhelming, is that it was Russia who tried to hack the DNC computer.
Okay. Now he goes on Meet the Press on NBC yesterday.
Were you briefed by the intelligence? According to the New York Times a couple weeks ago, U.S. senators were briefed after Fiona Hill's testimony that actually this entire effort to frame Ukraine for the Russian meddling of 2016, of which you just made this case that they've done it, that actually this is an effort of Russia propaganda, that this is a Russian intelligence propaganda campaign in order to get people like you to say these things about Ukraine. They're trying to frame Ukraine. You apparently were briefed about this in the United States Senate by intelligence officials. Are you at all concerned you're doing Russian intelligence work here?
I was not briefed.
You didn't attend that briefing?
And listen, Dr.
You didn't attend the briefing on that?
And Dr.
Okay.
I wasn't briefed. Dr. Hill is entitled to her opinion.
Oh my God!
But when the Economist magazine,
when does opinion become fact? Does 17 intelligence services saying it? Does every Western intelligence ally saying Russia did this? I'm just sort of confused. At what point is it no longer an opinion for you?
I don't think it's an opinion. I think it's a fact. I believe the reporting by the Politico magazine.
You just said Fiona Hill. You just said Fiona Hill gave an opinion.
I believe the report. I believe the reporting by the Financial Times. I believe the reporting by the Washington Examiner. You should read the articles, Chuck. They're very well documented. And I believe that a Ukrainian district court in December of 2018 slapped down several Ukrainian officials for meddling in our election as a violation of Ukrainian law. Now, I didn't report those facts.
Okay, and nobody reported those facts. What was reported was that the Black Ledger release that was given to the United States, the release of the Black Ledger, which was found by protesters who ran Viktor Yanukovych out of the country, showed illicit payments to Paul Manafort. And that ledger was made public, and the Ukrainians slapped down the prosecutor under Poroshenko, who made that Black Ledger public, causing Paul Manafort to be exposed and finally prosecuted. And they said maybe they should have sat on it until after the U.S. election. That was the full extent of what the Ukrainians did. The Russian intelligence officers were conveying all kinds of dirty information to prominent Russians, to Ukrainians who were loyal to Putin, like Yanukovych, okay, who then used a range of intermediaries like oligarchs, like Oleg Deripaska, for instance, and businessmen and their associates to pass the material on to American political figures and even some journalists. When these articles were leaked to the information was leaked to the American press, they did not know the origin of the propaganda, and now they do. And so everybody that had ever written anything, including a Ukrainian politician who wrote a whole article about how they were trying to fix corruption and blah, 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 and just mentioned that Donald Trump was probably more corrupt than Hillary Clinton, he was told, stop it, just stop it. And all he did was write an op-ed, and that's it. But this propaganda machine that Russia had going on, this GRU machine, this Russian intelligence operation, it made it into the American ecosystem, and it sloshed around until it reached Donald Trump's ears. And then in Helsinki, when Donald Trump stood on the stage and said, I don't see any reason why it was Putin. I don't see why he would have done it. And people were just shocked and sickened by it, because at that point, the intelligence agencies had found that it was Russia. Then in the July 25th call with Zelensky, he brings it up again, and everybody goes, you know, this man is nuts, okay? Because he said, I would like you to do us a favor. I would like you to find out what happened with the whole situation with Ukraine. Well, Russia wants Ukraine to be framed for what Russia did. Now, if there's any question in your mind about if Russia is a good actor in the world or a bad actor in the world, can we just remember that Russia downed a passenger jet over Ukraine in 2014? Can we also remember that Russia poisoned Skripal and his daughter, Julia? Can we also remember that he used polonium to, poison a guy who went rogue in the KGB? I mean, this is craziness. This is absolute mass madness. And there is Senator John Kennedy, who, by the way, thought a really good way to spend the 4th of July would be in Russia with Putin. There he is on the TV saying, we don't know who did it. I was wrong to say it was Ukraine. I have no evidence that it was Ukraine. I know it was Russia. I believe the intel. And then again, yesterday, saying we don't know, and it could be Ukraine, and there were some articles that were written years ago. And he was actually confronted. He was like, why are you doing what Putin wants? Why are you doing this? And he has no good answer for it, and that's suspicious.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Now, come on. I mean, I got to put up, you realize the only other person selling this argument outside the United States is this man, Vladimir Putin. This is what he said on November 20th. Thank God nobody is accusing us anymore of interfering in U.S. elections. Now they're accusing Ukraine. Well, let them sort this out among themselves. You just accused a former president of Ukraine. You've done exactly what the Russian operation is trying to get American politicians to do. Are you at all concerned that you've been duped?
No, because you just read the articles. Do you believe The Economist magazine is a reputable journal? It's been around, I think, since 1843.
Do you think there's a difference in criticizing? Do you think there's a difference in a country criticizing a presidential candidate who essentially endorsed another country's invasion and annexation of a part of their country as equivalent to what Russia did with the DNC?
Well, let me put it this way, Chuck. Let's suppose, and I don't believe it, but you're right, and I'm wrong. Then what harm would it do to allow the President of the United States, who has a demonstrated record fighting foreign corruption, to introduce evidence?
Why doesn't he?
What harm would it do?
He has been provided every opportunity to provide exculpatory evidence on any of this, and they have chosen not to.
No, he hasn't.
Yes, he has.
No, he hasn't.
Yes, he has.
Rounds 1 and 2 by Speaker Pelosi and Chairman Schiff are as rigged as a carnival ring toss. And we both know that.
Oh, my God.
If I were a prosecutor and I were prosecuting you for a felony and I went to a federal judge and I said, Judge, we both know Chuck's guilty. So let me call witnesses. Give me an order that he can't call any witnesses. He can't cross-examine my witnesses. He can't offer any rebuttal evidence. His lawyer can't even be there. You know what that federal judge would do?
Right. Well, that wasn't the trial. You're going to get a trial.
Handcuffs, or he'd put me in a straitjacket. Because I'd be sanctioned.
This White
and that's
House,
what's happened here.
Senator, this White House has not cooperated on any oversight at all. have they not brought some of this upon themselves?
Have they allowed the president to call his own witnesses?
Yes.
No. Have they allowed him to have his lawyer present? No. Have they allowed him to offer rebuttal evidence? No. Have they allowed him to cross-examine the witnesses that were handpicked by Speaker Pelosi? No.
Okay. Has the president allowed Mick Mulvaney to testify? No. Has the president allowed Mike Pompeo to testify? No. Has the president allowed John Bolton to testify? No. Has the president been allowed to call witnesses? Yes. Sondland and Volker were Donald Trump's handpicked witnesses. Those witnesses were asked for by Devin Nunes on behalf of Donald Trump. They thought that, where's Rudy Giuliani? Why won't President Trump let Rudy Giuliani, who's a civilian, testify? If nothing, he's done nothing wrong. Now, obviously, on Wednesday, there is a hearing, and the president is allowed to send his lawyers. The president is allowed to come if he wants to. The president was allowed to come to the other hearing that we had last week with all those witnesses. President could have shown up anytime, sat in the chair, gotten sworn. President wouldn't even talk to Bob Mueller, even though he was telling all of us he would love to sit down with Mueller. Well, he didn't, and he didn't want to, because the president is guilty of sin. And so the president then he agreed to answer questions in writing, and the testimony from Mueller was that he was mostly not credible in his written answers either, meaning he lied, he perjured himself under oath. So let's not attack the process any longer. Nobody is attacking any of the facts in this case. Nobody can attack the facts in this case, because the facts in this case clearly, as revealed by Mick Mulvaney from a public podium, as revealed by Donald Trump in a transcript of a partial transcript of a phone call, is devastating. It's absolutely a quid pro quo. The testimony from the Trump witnesses, Sondland and Volker, was that it was a quid pro quo. They said those words. They said them out loud. There was a shakedown of Ukraine. They were part of it. They were ordered to work with Rudy Giuliani by the president. The president denies that he asked Rudy Giuliani to do anything for him. President denies that he even knows Sondland, right? Gordon Sondland is an unknown person to the president, although the president has 20 different phone calls with Gordon Sondland during this period of time. But he doesn't know Gordon Sondland. And Gordon Sondland also gave $1 million to Donald Trump's inaugural committee. And then he became ambassador to the EU. Well, last we checked, Ukraine was not part of the EU, but Donald Trump put his shadow diplomacy team in place, and that included Sondland and Volker and Rudy Giuliani and Rick Perry. Where is Rick Perry? If there is exculpatory evidence, if there is evidence that will set Trump free, why doesn't he allow these witnesses to testify on his behalf? Because they will tell the truth. That's why. Bolton will eventually tell the truth. He's just waiting for this PR buildup for his book, and he wants to sell more copies than Junior did. You know, Junior's book is being bought by conservative, organizations as a premium. So if you gave to, this Heritage Foundation or to, Freedom Fighter or whatever, then you get a free book. Because they bought all Donald Trump's books. They bought them in bulk, which is their little shenanigans again. But that said, here's Gordon Sondland.
These emails show that the leadership of the State Department, the National Security Council, and the White House were all informed about the Ukraine efforts from May 23rd, 2019 until the security aid was released on September 11th, 2019. I will quote from some of those messages with you shortly. Fourth, as I testified previously, Mr. Giuliani's requests were a quid pro quo for arranging a White House visit for President Zelensky. Mr. Giuliani demanded that Ukraine make a public statement announcing the investigations of the 2016 election, DNC server, and Burisma.
All right, quid pro quo, Mr. Giuliani, ordered by the president, insert yourself, create shadow diplomacy, shake down Ukraine. We need an announcement that they're going to investigate the Bidens. We need an announcement that they got the CrowdStrike server, which is just crazy because it's in the basement of the DNC in Washington, D.C., right? All this. And Senator Kennedy sits on the TV and says exactly what Putin wants said and what wants injected into the U.S. ecosystem. What the propaganda. Now, Putin is a pro at disinformation campaigns. He's been doing it for Russia has been doing disinformation campaigns for 70 years. This is not new. Vladimir Putin was a colonel in the KGB. He is trained in deception, and he trained our president to do exactly what he says to do in order to deceive his own people. This is Putin's stock and trade, and Trump is a fraud, and he has no problem doing it. And apparently, John Neely Kennedy, the senator, and Representative Doug Collins, and Representative McClintock, and half of the Nunes, they're all guilty of sin.
But if the courts rule in the future that senior officials like John Bolton, Mick Mulvaney could testify, do you believe they should?
Absolutely. And in fact, again, I think it would be to the president's advantage to have him testify now. But of course, he has to weigh that against the enormous catastrophic damage that would do to the doctrine of executive privilege that assures that when policy is being developed within the administration, those discussions are unfettered, are candid, are thinking outside of the box. That's why the doctrine of executive privilege exists.
He has not invoked executive privilege. Okay? The President of the United States did not invoke executive privilege, and Mulvaney can't invoke executive privilege because Mulvaney went to a podium and said, yeah, we do this all the time. Politics is part of our foreign policy. Get used to it. There is no executive privilege. Same with Don McGahn. The courts ruled Don McGahn has to testify. Former White House counsel Don McGahn has to testify. Don McGahn, they're going to say, oh, executive privilege. Don McGahn already sat down with Bob Mueller. His name is all throughout the Mueller report as being a cooperative witness and showing everything and telling everything. Don McGahn has already been questioned. You can't answer questions and then go back and say, oh, I can't answer the questions that I already answered because of executive privilege, because that's just stupid. It's the same with the Fifth Amendment, okay? You can invoke the Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate yourself, but you can't answer any questions after that. If you answer any questions after that, you've lost your protection under the Fifth Amendment. It's the same. And executive privilege, by the way, can only be invoked by the President of the United States, not by Mulvaney, not by Pompeo, not by Giuliani, not by Bolton, not by anybody. Only the President who has chosen not to do it.
Clear. Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
You remember this in Minnesota a couple weeks ago?
Peter Strzok. Remember, he and his lover, Lisa Page. What a group. She's going to win. 10 million to 1. She's going to win. I'm telling you, Peter. I'm telling you, Peter, she's going to win. Peter, oh, I love you so much. I love you, Peter. I love you too, Lisa. Lisa, I love you. Lisa. Lisa. Oh, God, I love you, Lisa. And if she doesn't win, Lisa, we've got an insurance policy, Lisa. We'll get that son of a out. We got an insurance policy.
So that apparently was the breaking point for Lisa Page, okay? Lisa Page gave an interview to, I guess, the Daily Beast. She just couldn't take it anymore. And so she said, I'm done being quiet. She called Donald Trump's attacks at that rally sickening and said that she chose to speak out after the president did this lewd impression of her in Minnesota with Peter Strzok, an FBI agent with whom she had an affair. She said, quote, "I had stayed quiet for years hoping it would fade away, but instead it got worse. It had been so hard not to defend myself, to let people who hate me control the narrative. I decided to take my power back. It's like being punched in the gut. My heart drops to my stomach when I realize he tweeted about me again. The president of the United States is calling me names to the entire world. He's demeaning me. He's demeaning my career. And it's sickening." So she sat down and she gave an interview and she explained that the IG report that is coming out, the Michael Horowitz report, which, by the way, in the New York Times, there's a story from a couple days ago that says, quote, this is how the story opens, "The Justice Department's Inspector General found no evidence that the FBI attempted to place undercover agents or informants inside Donald J. Trump's campaign in 2016 as FBI agents investigated whether his associates conspired with Russia's election interference operation." So this IG report, remember Bill Barr was saying, "Oh, I think he was spied on. Oh, yeah, I do. I think he was spied on." And I've ordered, John Durham, the U.S. attorney in Connecticut, to open up another investigation and to prove that there was spying. And the IG, Michael Horowitz, is going to come out with his report, and you're going to see that it was Page and Strzok and Nellie Orr and her husband Bruce Orr, and they were all conspiring again. None of that was demonstrably true. None of it will be an IG Horowitz report. In fact, IG Horowitz report, and this is an Inspector General's report where, I mean, one bad email and you're going to hear about it. One typo in an application and you're going to hear about it. And apparently the only thing that Michael Horowitz's IG report on how the investigation, the counterintelligence investigation into Russia, not Trump, into Russia began is the same as we always knew. And that was George Papadopoulos had a meeting with a Russian intelligence asset named Professor Mifsud and sat down with him in London, and Mifsud filled his head with junk and garbage about that the Russians had all these emails on Hillary Clinton and that they were going to continue to hack and blah, blah. And Papadopoulos got drunk and had another dinner with an Australian diplomat and told him that he had a meeting with this professor. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Mifsud was in Italy. So he had this meeting with this professor in Italy, and then in London he met with the ambassador from Australia and told the ambassador from Australia, who's part of our Five Eyes intelligence operations, meaning 5 countries share intelligence with the United States and we share ours with them. Australia is one of them. And so the Australian diplomat contacted our FBI and said, there's this guy named Papadopoulos that is running around saying he met with an Italian professor who we think is a Russian intelligence officer. And that intelligence officer from Russia, from the GRU, told Papadopoulos that the Russians were hacking and that they had gotten Hillary Clinton's emails. And we thought you should know. And so that started the counterintelligence investigation. Carter Page, nobody was wiretapped, nobody was spied on. Carter Page had also been on the FBI's radar as being a person who could be loyal to Russia because of business opportunities he felt he had over there. But when, and this is so important, when Carter Page left the Trump campaign, when Carter Page left the Trump campaign, the FBI asked for a FISA warrant, a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Authorization warrant, after he left. And it was given to the FBI as part of their counterintelligence investigation into Russia. They never once looked at the Trump campaign. They never once looked at the Trump organization. They never looked at the Trump Foundation. They never looked at anything with Trump's name on it, ever. Carter Page's third FISA warrant renewal. That FISA warrant was renewed 3 times. During the third application, and a FISA warrant application is like this thick, okay? It's about the size of the phone book of New York City. It's gigantic. It's probably 1,000 pages, maybe more, a FISA warrant application. So the third renewal, a low-level FBI lawyer said he had some information in an email that he could provide to the court that went with the application. He couldn't produce the email. IG Horowitz is going to cite him as being less than, proper in his, representation of having this email. And that is all that he will find. That is all that he will find. He will not find that Lisa Page violated the law or had an insurance policy against Trump. In fact, what he will find is that Strzok and Page had some information about Carter Page and George Papadopoulos and maybe even, Paul Manafort and Michael Flynn, and never made it public, even though the campaign had ended up being almost tied between Hillary and Trump toward the end. September, October, November, almost tied. Never said a word, never released any information, never did anything to tip the scales, never did anything to hurt Donald Trump, never did anything to help Hillary Clinton. Nothing. So Lisa Page finally said today, while it would be nice to have the IG confirm publicly that my personal opinions had absolutely no bearing on the course of the Russia investigations, I don't kid myself that fact will matter very much to a lot of people. She said the president has a very loud megaphone and nobody's going to believe her. She said it's also very intimidating because he is still the president of the United States. And when the president of the United States accuses you of treason by name, despite the fact that I know there's no fathomable way that I have committed any crime at all, let alone treason, he's still somebody who is actually in a position to do something about that, to try to further destroy my life. It never goes away. It never stops, even when he's not publicly attacking me. Now, you got to know that there was another investigation in 2018, a previous IG investigation last year that also looked at this and said they did not let their political views affect their decision-making in the investigation. And it still hasn't gone away, and he's going to do this all over again. He just did it in Minnesota. She said she had it, and she needed to defend herself from accusations of treason.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Now, what exactly is wrong with Bill Barr?
I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. I'm not suggesting that those rules were violated, but I think it's important to look at that. And I'm not talking about the FBI necessarily, but intelligence agencies more broadly.
So you're not suggesting, though, that spying occurred?
I don't. I guess you could. I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
What is wrong with that man? And that is our Attorney General of the United States. There is no spying on the president's campaign. There was no spying on the Trump organization. There was no spying on anybody at all. Okay, Carter Page had left the campaign. Carter Page had been on the radar of the FBI for a very long time. Papadopoulos was dumb. He got drunk. He's talked to an ambassador from Australia who alerted our intelligence agencies that there was information given to him by a Russian intelligence operative who was in the United States. You know, Mr. Professor Misfud or whatever. He was in the United States and somebody tipped him off and he fled the United States. And now we can't find him. We can't talk to him. We don't know, except Mueller's report says that Misfud was a Russian intelligence operative who was telling Papadopoulos to tell the Trump campaign, we got this. We got so much dirt on Hillary Clinton. We got emails. We got Podesta's email. We got all kinds of crap. And we want Trump, and Trump welcomed it, right? That we know after the fact. But nobody spied on Carter Page. Nobody spied on Papadopoulos. What happened to Papadopoulos was, after the fact, he was called in to testify, and he lied. He lied about his meetings. He lied about Miss Foot. He lied about the Australian ambassador, and he went to jail for 12 big days. Now he's running for office, this man who lied to cover himself. Carter Page, he left the campaign. And that's when they went to the FISA court and said, this guy's no longer associated with the Trump campaign. We got issues with him. We think that he is, a guy who will do the bidding of Vladimir Putin for business opportunities. We need to figure that. So 3 times, the FISA warrants are only good for what? I think 90 days. And 3 times the FISA warrants were renewed. On the 3rd time, a low-level FBI lawyer represented he had an email or some such thing. I don't even know what it is yet, and we won't know till the IG report comes out. And he couldn't produce the email, and that was unprofessional. 3rd renewal. I mean, this is just, look, the findings in Mr. Horowitz's report is that there is no evidence that the FBI attempted to place any undercover agent or informant inside the campaign. Agents were investigating Russia, not Donald Trump, and that the FBI did not act improperly, that the FBI was not politically motivated, that there was no secret wiretap that was ordered on anybody in the Trump campaign, only Carter Page, and only after he left. This is pure fantasy. This is Putin's propaganda machine that Trump is all about. It's just so wrong, and it's so sick, and it's just, I'll tell you, Charlie Dent, who left Congress in 2017. He just couldn't take it anymore. He's a Republican. Just couldn't take it anymore. And he says privately he's talking to members of the GOP. And secretly, these are cowards. These are pure cowards. Secretly, they're disgusted by what they have to do. Secretly, they're disgusted by Donald Trump. But they won't say anything out loud.
Well, I think my former colleagues are in a situation where they understand their base pressure. The base has not yet bolted from the president, and I think that's why they're standing with the president for the moment. But there's no question, having spoken to many of them privately, they are absolutely disgusted and exhausted by the president's behavior. They resent being put in this position all the time. I mean, just take, for example, when they tried to, remember how they tried to pivot from the Ukraine scandal a few weeks ago by pivoting to Doral, bringing the G7 there, moving from one corrupt act to another. I mean, those types of head-exploding moments are just, I think, infuriating these members. And I think they'd like to step out, but they just can't because of their base at the moment. Yeah, and I think they can't step out because of Fox News at the moment. That's what I think. I swear to God, they tell you this, this thing about Republicans. Well, they're afraid that he'll tweet about them and ruin their. You know what? He lost the election in Alabama. He's been losing these very pivotal elections where he's gone and he's campaigned for a certain candidate and then they lose. And this is repeating itself over and over again in swing districts or in the Deep South even. I don't think that Republicans are afraid of being tweeted about at all. I think Republicans are afraid of Fox News viewers, okay? Because Fox News, even after this IG report, the Justice Department announced that the IG report found no wrongdoing at all on the part of the FBI with regard to the counterintelligence investigation that was opened up with James Comey, okay? No wrongdoing at all. It was not based on the Steele dossier, which they didn't have when they opened up a counterintelligence investigation. And the Steele dossier was like in a footnote, like much later on. This was all started because Papadopoulos talked to a Russian intelligence agent and told an Australian ambassador that Russia was hacking
the United States election and that they had dirt on Hillary Clinton, and the Australians alerted the United States FBI. And a counterintelligence investigation, not a criminal investigation into anybody, but into Russia, was opened, and it was a valid, permitted endeavor by the FBI, okay? So now you turn on Fox News, and you'll hear the exact opposite.
Okay, let's debunk these two things right away. This New York Times story, which addresses these 2 points, which is supposed to be some kind of effort to gaslight everyone and make you believe what happened didn't happen, actually says it happened. The New York Times story, if you read it, which most people didn't, they just read the headline, which is a Pravda-like propaganda effort, says no evidence of spying. It then goes on, if you read the story later on, to say how the FBI spied and put spies in the campaign. Now, it uses euphemisms in the euphemism game to call spies like, all kinds of fancy names like FBI employees, FBI informers. Guys, there's informers, there's spies in the common use of the language, and the New York Times story confirms it.
I mean, it's an alternate universe. I mean, exactly the opposite of what the IG report found, what the previous IG report found, the origins of the Mueller investigation, which, by the way, go back to the Comey investigation, and then Comey was fired, and that's how we got Robert Mueller, and that was the first time that Donald Trump himself or his campaign was ever looked at for obstruction of justice, because he fired James Comey, that idiot. Prior, this was a counterintelligence investigation into Russian hacking. Mr. Horowitz found no evidence that anybody tried to infiltrate the Trump campaign.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Oh, Brett, she's back. Here's your girl, Sarah, on the Fox News. Lying. More.
To me, it's not surprising at all, because we knew all along that there was no scandal here, that it was a complete sham that was, dreamt up by Adam Schiff, another hoax. He failed with the Russian hoax, and so now he came up with this big process to try to distract America from all the good things that the president is doing.
Like what?
It's no surprise that after 2 weeks of hearing all of their star witnesses admit not to witnessing anything, that this thing has completely tanked and that people are sick and tired of watching it. They want Congress to actually get something done. They want them to be productive. They'd love to see things like USMCA passed and, talk about infrastructure or drug pricing or anything that actually helps impact the country. And yet, instead of doing that, you can see that the Democrats have no plan, no vision, no solutions, and all they can do is attack this president, and people are paying attention to that, and the numbers are reflecting it.
Okay, Sarah, there are 250 pieces of legislation sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk in the Senate. And some of them are H.R. 1 to get money out of elections and paper ballot backups, H.R. 8, which is a gun safety measure. Then there's the prescription drug price, bill that actually requires the Medicare program to negotiate with Big Pharma to get the cost of prescription drugs down. There's an infrastructure package. What is wrong with this network? How do they sit there and do this and sleep at night? I don't understand. They sell out their country day in, day out for this fraud, this fraudulent, obese, disgusting, lying sack who somehow managed to convince America that he was not a one-man swamp. Speaking of swamp, I have to tell you, so one of the weekend shows, okay, this is like the sickest weekend show that they have on the Fox News channel. Steve Hilton, he's like an English guy that opines about, American values. And actually, he admitted on his show that Rudy Giuliani and some of these other guys, like John Solomon at The Hill and Victoria Tensing and Joe DeGeneva, who are representing a Russian criminal named Victor Firtash, and also, part of this conspiracy. to defraud the United States, that they are part of a swamp. And then all of a sudden, Rudy Giuliani today piped up and said he was going to sue Fox News and Steve Hilton for this.
There is another swamp here, okay? And we have to be honest with ourselves and with our audience and with everyone here, which is that there's a swamp going on with the commercial interests of Rudy Giuliani, Joe DeGeneva, Victoria Tensing, John Solomon's involved now. I know he's a Fox News contributor. He's done some great reporting on this. But there is another side to this swamp.
Oh, are
and
you saying that Rudy Giuliani is a part of the swamp?
On this, yes, because what's he doing? He's going around trying to make business deals out of the Ukraine situation at the same time as acting for his client, President Trump. He's trying to make money off of his relationship with President Trump. I don't like that.
I do want always corruption.
So now Rudy Giuliani is considering filing a lawsuit against the weekend host Steve Hilton on the Fox News Network because he veered off script, which is to defend the orange one no matter what he does. Whether he's enriching himself, whether he's renting out entire floors of his hotel in Washington to the Saudi royal family while they're murdering journalists, not just murdering, dismembering. So, you know, this is unbelievable. So here we are, everybody. Here we are. And tonight at 6 o'clock, you know, about an hour and a half from now, we will get the first glimpse at the Schiff Ukraine report. Tomorrow, the House will vote on whether or not to endorse and accept that report as the report. And then Wednesday, we will have legal scholars come in and testify based on the reporting, based on the witness testimony. What is a high crime? What is a misdemeanor? What is impeachable? So they just released the witness list. It will be called Constitutional Grounds for Presidential Impeachment. The witnesses will be Noah Feldman. If you've never heard of Noah Feldman, he is a Felix Frankfurter professor of law. That is, Felix Frankfurter was a Supreme Court justice and one of the great ones. This is at Harvard Law School. Pam Carlin, she's a professor of public interest law and co-director of the Supreme Court Litigation Stanford Law School. Michael Gerhardt, who is from the University of North Carolina School of Law. He is the Burton Craig Distinguished Professor of Jurisprudence. And somebody that we all know, I think, in the Randi Rhodes Show wheelhouse, Jonathan Turley, who you know is a libertarian, and he teaches public interest law at George Washington School of Law, George Washington University School of Law, which is, if I had my life to do over again, I would have made sure that's where I went. Okay, and so that'll be at 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning. Those will be the four legal scholars. And I just want you to know, Turley is probably anti-impeachment. Yes. Right. So it should be fascinating. All right, Patty in Portland.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Patty.
I sure do love you and your crew.
Thank you.
I've been wanting to ask you this for a while, and shout out to the chat room also. And with you're such a brainiac, Randy, and I appreciate you so much. And what do you think Trump and the Republicans' bottom line is in all of this? I just don't get it.
All right, so
the Republicans know they're lying.
Yeah, they do.
And they're not as stupid as they pretend to be. Trump is a clear and present danger to this country, and they know it. He's destroying us. And unless they are planning on changing the whole system and bringing us all down, I don't understand where they are going with this. This is more than just keeping their seats, because he's destroying us. They know he's a maniac behind closed doors. They see he's a maniac in public and everywhere he goes. He doesn't know what he's doing. He shouldn't be there. What do you think, my brilliant Randi Rhodes? What do you think their bottom line is? What are they going to get out of this?
So the bottom line for them is video. And the bottom line for them would be audio tapes, just like Nixon, right? I mean, you have to remember the Republicans stood by Richard Nixon the whole time until I guess his name was Richard Butterfield, testified that there was a taping system in the White House and that there were tapes of Richard Nixon ordering the break-in, right? Ordering a crime. Now, the House Intelligence Committee is in possession of audio and video recordings and photographs that were provided to them by Lev Parnas. The problem is, Lev Parnas is also under indictment for funneling foreign money into the campaign. The Republicans are probably the recipients of a lot of this foreign money that was laundered through things like Lev Parnas and this fake energy company he had, and the NRA. But unless and until audio and videotape appears where Americans can hear and see for themselves, they're going to go down this bad road with Donald Trump.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
What's the biggest question left in your mind ahead of the beginning of your hearings?
We got the best evidence at the very beginning. The "do me a favor, though" phone call. And the question is, should that misconduct result in impeachment?
And what about testimony from the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani,
Yeah,
who
what about
Gordon
it?
Sondland said was in the loop on everything? Should he testify?
More information is better than less in every aspect. My objection to what the Congress has done is it is impeded that process by vetoing Republican witnesses.
We don't work for this president or any president. We work for the American people. We do have a constitutional responsibility to serve as a check and balance on a potentially out-of-control executive branch. That is not the Democratic Party playbook.
Have you gotten any indication the White House will be involved or the council?
We have not.
What harm would it do to allow the President of the United States, who has a demonstrated record fighting foreign corruption, to introduce evidence?
Why doesn't he?
Yeah. What harm would it do?
He has been provided every opportunity to provide exculpatory evidence on any of this, and they have chosen not to.
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't.
You don't want to allow the administration to play rope-a-dope with the courts and have this delayed and delayed and delayed.
The most valuable witness that we have is the President of the United States himself. When President Zelensky on July 25th, on the infamous call, mentioned the fact that he was about ready to purchase additional weaponry, President Trump responded, "But I need you to do me a favor, though." None of the witnesses that we've talked to who have been directly involved or not were able to give any reasonable, rational explanation for holding up the military aid.
That's a fact. Nobody could explain it. Nobody understood it. Nobody could, come. Mick Mulvaney at OMB, he would be a good witness if the president did nothing wrong, right? Because that's where the money got held up. Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, he would be a good witness if he, could testify that the president did nothing wrong. John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, he would be a great witness. And Rudy Giuliani, who's very busy suing Fox News weekend hosts. Why doesn't he testify if there's no wrongdoing here? See what I mean? The president has had every opportunity for witnesses of his preference. The president of the United States himself could have, asked the House of Representatives to hear from him. Every single member of the Intelligence Committee sat there and said, President is more than welcome to come and sit down and get sworn and tell his side of the story. Mick Mulvaney, he's more than welcome to come and get sworn, tell his side of the story. John Bolton is more than welcome to come and get sworn. Mick Mulvaney, more than welcome. Giuliani, let him come. I mean, you had Lindsey Graham saying, I'm going to call Rudy Giuliani. Nobody ever did. Isn't that something? Nobody ever did. Everybody's in court fight. Don McGahn. It just depends on what the court says. The court says you have to testify. You can't defy a congressional subpoena. That's called obstruction of Congress. Okay? Can't do it. Well, the president, executive privilege. No, you already answered the questions. So did Mick Mulvaney in public at a podium. Okay. And once you've answered the questions, you can't say, I can't answer the question.
And we knew that that money either had to go out the door by the end of September, or we had to have a really, really good reason not to do it. And that was the legality of the issue.
But to be clear, what you just described is a quid pro quo. It is funding will not flow unless the investigation into the Democratic server happens as well.
We do that all the time.
Now he can't say, I can't answer what happened. Because he already answered. We do that all the time. Get used to it. We're corrupt. Oh, well. You see what I mean? And the only person, again, that can exert executive privilege is the President of the United States, and he doesn't do it. Why? Because he likes to torture these people. He keeps them hanging. He keeps them dangling, right? Because if they don't cooperate, and he hasn't, then maybe he'll pardon them in the end. It's such a... And listen, when all this falls apart, and it will, because this is such corruption, this is mega corruption, massive corruption. When this all fails, the Republican Party is done. They are done. There will be no Republican Party. Everything that they ever told you about deficits, and they're concerned about it, and, pull yourself up from your bootstraps while giving, welfare to farmers who don't even want it. They would rather keep their markets in China. They would rather keep, their soybeans flowing and do real business. But oh no, Donald Trump would rather give them everything they ever said about government dependence, everything they ever said about, a free market. Obviously, there's no coal industry, not because of any legislation. President Trump has done everything to give the coal industry a free pass to throw coal ash in your swimming pool wherever it wants, whenever it wants, to put mercury in the water, to put, lead in your water. Anything and everything industry ever wanted, and they still can't make a go of it. They still declare bankruptcy. Why? Because their free market has said coal is too expensive. Natural gas is the future. And who's got natural gas? Russia. Chris in Rochester.
Hey, Randy.
Hi.
Hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
The thoughts in my head are, how the hell are we going to put this country back together again? I feel like I'm in the movie Exorcist, and we're all dressed up as the priest going, the power of truth compels you. It's just like watching this thing raise above the bed, and we just have to keep sticking to it as the slop comes out of these people.
Well, I'll tell you what would unify this country. I'll tell you exactly what, okay? You get a Democratic president, keep the House, add a couple of, what do we need, like 4 seats in the Senate? And all of a sudden, we do health care reform, and all of a sudden, we raise the federal minimum wage, and all of a sudden, we do a real infrastructure project, and everybody feels really good and realizes, oh, damn, there really were 250 pieces of legislation sitting in Mitch McConnell's graveyard. I will never do that again. That's what would bring the country together. Can you imagine? All of a sudden, federal minimum wage is raised. All of a sudden, it's December. It's like the second day in December. I got to pay my health care premium, okay? $2,069.
Jesus.
Right. So honest to God, man, wouldn't it be something if Democrats got elected and all of a sudden there's at least an option to buy into Medicare? Oh, my God. Can you imagine how much money would be freed up to support this economy, and how much consumerism there would be, and what the GDP of this country, which 70% of all GDP is consumerism. Can you imagine?
I worry about the debt crisis of people who are going to debt to buy stuff, and they really can't afford it.
Who is the only president in modern history who actually created 22 million jobs and zeroed out the debt and deficit? Who?
Barack Obama.
No, Bill Clinton.
Who?
Bill Clinton.
Oh, 8 million. How many was Obama? 8 million?
I don't know, but 22 is Bill Clinton.
I'll take your numbers.
And zero. We had a debt clock, and it turned off because we didn't know. So, there is a way, and where there's a will, there's a way. But that's what brings this country together, is making things better for ordinary people who work every single day and just can't get ahead. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I do tax returns. I do returns for a lot of people that are poor, and And, you know, a lot of times they can't pay me. I'm like, because I'm trying to keep them out of trouble. Because then they seize their bank accounts when they can't pay their taxes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's insane. And
it is
there's a lot of
insane.
pressure
And yet
there.
you've got Amazon and GE and all these mega corporations that literally pay zero. Some of them actually get refunds. And here you got somebody making, what, $52,000 a year, just barely by the skin of their teeth. And they owe taxes at the end of the year?
Yeah, they're treating in New York State. They're treating you know, per diem nurses that the state pays under Medicaid and not paying them as employees. So then they got the Social Security taxes that they haven't paid in, and then they get banged $15,000, and they go, "How am I going to pay that?"
Yeah,
that puts patients at risk because the nurses are stressed out.
Yeah, no, it's all a bizarre flip of the way things, you know, ought to be for the people who built and will build and continue to work and support everything this country does, from making
Thank
food.
you so much.
You're welcome. From making food to taking care of the seniors to taking care of children, teaching children. I mean, the only people that are doing well are hedge fund managers and speculators on Wall. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. And for some strange reason, the people who are hurting the worst, whose companies are declaring bankruptcy where there is no other industry, continue to support strong and wrong. No, what brings this country together is progress. What brings this country together is an increase in wages